2025 has been one of the craziest years in the market. From interest rates to the tech explosion, it has been one roller coaster. However, 2026 is going to be even more interesting with the AI bubble, the interest rates dropping, and silver and gold exploding. In this video, I'll show you exactly where I'm going to be investing my money for the entire of 2026. On top of this, I've been investing for around 5 years, at around the same time that I started my career. And I've been taking investing extremely seriously for that entirety of the time. I'm also debt-free, so I have literally zero debts, no student loan, no car finance debts, no credit card debt, which means I'm able to invest 50 to 70% of my income every single month into the markets. And my total return in the stock market last year was 18.5%. So now that you know a little bit about myself, where am I going to be putting my money in 2026? Well, this brings me on to the first point of a cash emergency fund. Now, I know it might sound a little boring, but I think it is one of the most crucial things you should be investing in. So many people keep their emergency fund in all different places, whether that just be a regular savings account, perhaps it's an actual rainy day account, or a cash ISA. I personally keep my emergency fund inside of the premium bonds. This is deliberately kept out of the market on purpose so that I'm able to withdraw at any point in time if so there be an emergency. So I've already built up quite a large emergency fund, and I am not actively putting a great deal amount in there for 2026. However, out of my monthly salary, I am definitely going to be putting 5 to even 10% into this emergency fund just to add a little bit of extra and keep it topped up. Now, the reason why I use premium bonds and not a regular everyday savings account is just because I know that it is acting similar to a savings account anyway, and you get drawn into winning monthly prizes at a rough rate of around 3.5 to 4% at the current recording of this video. Again, everyone's varies, but I quite like keeping mine into the premium bonds and just perhaps getting lucky that month. Alongside this, with the premium bonds, you are able to put £50,000 in here completely tax-free, and any of the winnings and any of the savings that you do make are also completely tax-free. And not only this, but if I want to withdraw my money at any point in time, it only takes about 24 to 48 hours for it to appear in my current account. And this brings me over to the next one, and I think is one of the most fun ones, of my stocks and shares ISA. So within my stocks and shares ISA, I put a huge amount of my monthly salary into here. It is getting on for around 60%, and perhaps even some months it might be 80%. And the app that I use to invest all of this is the Trading 212 account. I specifically use the ISA feature, and I know that there are many out there on the market, but it just has a very nice, clean and user interface. Alongside this, it has some of the lowest fees out of any of the platforms out there, and you can buy fractional shares of any of the stocks or ETFs that you want. Within here for 2026, I think that I'm going to be following the same strategy that I did last year of keeping it really simple and putting 90% of my portfolio into the S&P 500 ETF. Specifically, I put it into the VUSA. This is a Vanguard ETF that tracks the S&P 500 from the US. If you don't know what that is, it is just 500 companies into one ETF, and you're able to invest into all of them. I've done this with 90% of my portfolio and seen great returns and gains, so I think I'm going to be continuing this onto 2026. The rest of the 10% falls into a iShares technology ETF, iShares physical silver, and also one dividend fund. There is no overcomplication in this, and there is literally 4 instruments in my entire ISA. And this just means that for the rest of 2026, I can continue to put a large portion of my salary each and every month into these 4 instruments in Trading 212. However, for 2026, I think that I'm going to be ramping up my contributions into the dividend fund. This is specifically the City of London Investment Fund, which pays me a 4.05% dividend over the course of a year. I'm going to be adding much more money to that one in particular. However, still keeping it within that 10 to 15% of the entire portfolio. This brings me on to my next one of my pension. So currently I work a regular 9 to 5 office job, and effectively I just pay into the pension contribution scheme that is already set up for me. I personally contribute and fluctuate between 11 and 15% throughout the entire year because the employer I work for is pretty great and they give me a 4% match. effectively giving me 4% free on top of everything that I put into my pension already. So in total, with my contribution and my employer's contribution, it's roughly around 15% averaged out for the rest of the year. If you're currently working for a regular employer and not yourself, chances are you're probably already entered into a pension scheme. If you are not contributing the minimum amount, it's often 3, 4, 5%, then effectively you are literally throwing away free money. There is also a tax benefit to this, in which that everything that goes into your pension is pre-taxed. And I think that in 2026, I'm going to be increasing this from 11% to roughly 16 or 17%. On top of that employer contribution, it is going to be a 20% in total. The reason I'm slightly more aggressive with my pension this early on and in my early 20s is because from the ages of 20 to 30 years old is where you lock in the most amount of gains for your pension sometime in the future. And if there is a period of time in my life in which that I don't have any job, or perhaps I'm going to be doing a big purchase and can't be contributing that much money to my pension, I have already aggressively done this early on in my 20s so that I can potentially take a break later on. But this isn't something I'm planning to do in 2026. Not only this, but last year in 2025, I converted my entire pension from my default fund into the fund that I wanted to put it in. This is because the default fund was giving me roughly around 3 to 4% returns. And I thought that the total market is getting returns of 10 to 16%. And I thought that I was being cheaped and missed out on with that default fund. I'll make an entirely separate video about pensions and default funds, but I changed all of mine into the one that I wanted, and I'm going to be continuing to do that in 2026. This brings me over to my next investment of my general investment account. So outside of my tax-free ISA, I have a general investment account open with Robinhood, and I would call this my riskier account. Effectively, out of my monthly salary and other incomes, I put around $200 per month into this account just to play around in the market and to mainly see if I can beat my own returns on my tax-free ISA, and if I can potentially get some better returns than the S&P 500 overall. I've only been doing this for 2 years, but I'm definitely going to be continuing this into 2026 just because I find it fun to pick my own stocks, funds, and metals in order to try and beat the overall S&P 500. It is a much smaller account than my tax-free ISA, but I see this as a little bit of fun money to play around with. At some points in the year, I was actually beating the S&P 500 and beating my regular account. However, at some points in the year, like during April, during the tariffs, I was losing massively compared to the S&P 500. So it is a bit of an experimental account, but I'm going to be continuing this into 2026. This brings me over to my next investment, which I believe is one of the most fun ones, and this is physical gold and silver. So since 2021, I have been stacking gold and silver. Effectively, I've just been buying some physical silver, and I have a fair amount more over to the side and kept in safety deposit boxes. And I've been investing in this for around 4 years now. As you may know, the price of silver has massively shot up, and I bought my first one in 2021. Right now, silver is hitting all-time highs, and by the time you watch this video, it's probably gone up another 5 or 10%. Even though it is hitting all-time highs, I am still buying physical gold and silver. I mainly get all of mine from eBay and the Royal Mint, as I believe that over the next 5 to 10 years, the silver and gold gap is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. But also, there is something really quite satisfying about owning the physical silver itself. As I did mention that in my ISA, I do invest into digital silver also. This is my hedge against money printing sometime in the future. I believe that the Bank of England is going to turn on the money printers within the next few years once again, and buying silver and gold in physical format is my hedge against that. I try to buy roughly 2 to 4 ounces of silver per month, depending on how good the premium may be, or how much the premium is at that point in time. Overall, in 2026, I'm going to be investing roughly 10% of my salary each and every month into silver and gold, whether that be digital or physical. On to my next investment for 2026, and this is going to be my LISA, or lifetime ISA. Effectively, the lifetime ISA is one of the best deals the UK government actually gives you. So for every £1 you invest into your lifetime ISA, the UK government will match that by 25%. So you have a maximum cap of investing £4,000 per year into your LISA, and the UK government will give you a free £1,000 into your account. Can you believe that? The government gives you 25% for free. Now, of course, there are some slight catches here in that you can't necessarily withdraw this without losing your 25% bonus, and this is only really used for first-time home buyers. So if you're putting down a deposit, you can withdraw your LISA amount and put that towards your first home. Or you can withdraw this at 65 years old. There is no in between. So for 2026, I'm going to be maxing out my LISA amount of £4,000 just in order to get that free 25% from the government. And then this gives me an option to purchase a first home or just withdraw it when I'm old. Let me know down in the comments, what are your goals for 2026 and what are you going to be investing in? I believe it is going to be a very, very interesting year. Overall, my 2026 investment plan is trying to keep it very, very simple and not overcomplicating my portfolio. And I've even automated certain parts of this investment plan just so that I don't have to put too much time and energy into it. Remember, the best time to invest was 10 years ago, but the second best time is today. If you really did like that video, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and give it a like. And let me know of any other videos you'd like me to make. Thanks, and I'll catch you in the next one.